In this week's video, I'm going to make the case for what I think is the root cause and the trinity, essentially, of modern mental distress and what can be done about it. Yeah. Hello, hardy har. Sorry, I don't know what's going on. I turned the camera on. I felt a type of way. I go by Darling Nihilism. I am a certified Zoomer, and I have personal lived experience with mental and emotional distress. I'm currently at 21 on the journey of personal development, and I not only want to document what I'm learning and what I'm uncovering about myself, but I want to share it, just build a community, help people, etc., etc. Yeah, so I think especially when trying to understand something and trying to figure out ways to eliminate the problem rather than provide solutions, is the first we need to get our definition straight. What does it really mean to be in mental distress, and why is it so necessary that we try to curb it, Instead of curbing enthusiasm, how about we curb the mental distress? All right, the whole reason we're in this video. Boom, we're here. What exactly is mental distress? A set of painful mental and physical symptoms that are associated with normal fluctuations of mood in most people. In some cases, however, psychological distress may indicate the beginning of major depressive disorder, anxiety disorder, schizophrenia, somatization disorder, or a variety of other clinical conditions. It is thought to be what is assessed by many putative self-report measures of depression and anxiety. Pretty much any mental health problems, pretty much anyone who is maybe going through an episode of these things or has been clinically diagnosed or self-reported. I feel that Gen Zers and millennials and anyone underneath these generations are experiencing the most mental health distress. I don't even think it's like something I need to debate, but I think it's just good to break it down to really understand what the solutions are going to be. So I'm going to start with tech addiction. Technology addiction involves excessive use of technology that leads to problems and distress. When a person is addicted to technology, these activities are done to avoid or alleviate feelings of anxiety or irritability, rather than for fun and recreation. People with technology addiction can experience symptoms of tolerance and withdrawal similar to people with substance use disorders. Technology addiction is increasing across diverse populations. Why I think this is one of the key factors of mental distress, aside from having an addiction to smoking weed or drinking or fast food or things that most people can agree, all come to a consensus that those things are bad for you, even in moderation. If you didn't do those things, you'd be better off, right? Technology has improved life so drastically that it's hard to really see if the pros outweigh the cons or the cons outweigh the pros, and it's so instilled in the 21st century. I wouldn't say I've had a technology addiction ever since I got into technology. It's been there since I remember consciousness. I don't remember a time when I didn't have an iPod or an iPad. I might have had a phone, but even then it really didn't matter because we had things like Kik and iMessage. Like, you didn't necessarily have to have a phone to message people. I think the main problem and why this is a factor is that tech addiction is so common and not really seen as a problem. Like, you're not going to go to the doctor and they're going to tell you have a addiction to technology and people are going to start feeling a type of way. That isn't even a problem to some people who rely on technology for their jobs, their passions, and things like that. Maybe the foundation of the other two main causes of mental distress, and something that people are becoming more aware of. I think there are a bunch of videos on YouTube about people trying to reduce their screen time, but even then it's just our phones, and we also have our televisions, and we have our computers. Everything is so instantaneous. I've literally spent a whole day on my phone, not just like on computer or just on my phone, a whole day. Didn't achieve anything. And if someone were to hear that, they'd be like, oh, me too. Like, they wouldn't think twice about it. If you really think about it and not in a modern way, that's a big issue. Okay, next point. Escapism. This is something that I don't think it's talked much about in comparison to tech addiction, but I think it is something that has been going on long before technology. The premise of escapism, let's look at the definition. The tendency to escape from the real world to the delight or security of a fantasy world. Escapism may reflect a periodic, normal, and common impulse, as might be seen in a harmless daydream, or it may be evidence of or accompany symptoms of neuroses or more serious mental pathology. Yeah, this definition of escapism is kind of not making it seem that bad.
Damn.
I think the problem with escapism now is that before technology, it was mostly just daydreams and people reading or people getting into activities and things like that. But because of our tech addictions, you can literally just be in the world of social media, of video games, of literally virtual reality. Like now we're literally like leaving reality in such a different way. Not only is it easier to play into escapism, but it overlaps other things we do. Like it's not a bad thing to read a fictional book, but because most people are in distress these days, they're more prone to want to find something to just lose themselves in. I think I read somewhere it was kind of like a flight or fight response when someone is going through something. And it doesn't necessarily mean you have depression or diagnosed anxiety. Like it's not necessarily that, but just feeling a way about the world or people or conflict and just being so able to just go on your phone and literally like put your headphones in and be taken out of it, and it's not at the same level as just reading a book or having a daydream. Not only do you have a tech addiction because tech is so addicting and there's so many things you could do, but now you're also using it to feed into negative emotions. And again, like tech addiction, it's not seen as, like just the definition I read, it doesn't seem like a very harmful thing. But I also found this other quote: escapes help us rewind, refresh, and even get answers to some stubborn problems we encounter in our real lives. After all, escapism in itself isn't bad, but turning it into reality is. And it all starts with an "I need a break" statement, but sooner or later that break starts escalating to avoidance. Any chances of digesting reality diminished as soon as they hit the mind. And then it starts becoming a norm, like equating it to a more recognized addiction, like drinking. It's like, oh, like if you need to take a drink to get through your night post-work, like no one's really gonna think back twice. But if you feel like, damn, I can't go to sleep without this drink, like at that point we can recognize it's a problem. And the same thing goes with escapism. And now that I'm thinking about it, I think just because personally I've done it so much, I just try to steer clear of it so much now. But like, I'm not saying that in order to really have the least amount of mental distress, you have to never have escapism and never have a daydream and never, like, that would be a little extreme. Going on to my third and final of the trinity: parasocial relationships. Now, out of the three, I think that you can maintain the most healthy life. Like, if you just had to pick one and argue, like, who's going to be the healthiest, I would say having a parasocial relationships. Because to just be real, but most times people get their art out there, the way people connect and grow whatever business they're doing is through a parasocial relationship. So I'm not arguing that you should never have a parasocial relationship either. I think the problem is, like back in the day, like famous people like were gods, and like people really saw this barrier between them and celebrities. But now that like celebrities have Instagrams and Twitters and things like that, it's like you know what they're thinking, you know where they are, you know what they're doing, and it grows this parasocial relationship in a way that could be healthy before, but now you genuinely feel like you have an attachment to this person. And even the stuff that happened with Chapel Rowan and her drawing that boundary, when she said that, it made perfect sense to me. But I guess there were, I don't know if it was majority, I wasn't really keeping up with it, but I guess there were people that felt that, yeah, like, oh, she can't handle it, like, girl, you should be okay with the little stalking and the little this and that and the third. And it's almost like, do we hear ourselves? Like, we kind of sound a little crazy in justifying this behavior, because objectively it is weird, You could argue that if you're a famous figure, you're a famous person in some sort, that you knew what you're getting yourself into, but it doesn't make it okay, you know. That's what I think. Why I connect this to tech addiction, screen time, and escapism is that people are really losing the aspect of socializing. Like, these all kind of play into each other. They work off of each other. I really don't want to expose myself right now, but it's just crazy because I'll have, personally, I'm into politics and I like listening to political commentators, and I will literally have parasocial relationships, like thinking like, oh, what if I were to do this with this person and da-da-da-da, and it's like, they don't know I exist. They don't. And I don't know who they are. Whatever scenario I'm making up in my mind is based off such surface level things. And because everyone does it, it just seems normal. I think that's the big thing. Just so many people do it with each of these things, it just seems normal. Even though I think parasocial relationships to me is like the least harmful, it doesn't mean it's not harmful. I kind of just would like to focus on the friends I really have and I really know. But there was a time, even last year, where like, not that I was putting parasocial relationships above them, but where I just was not engaging in real friendships and really socializing, because I'd rather watch this person go on a podcast and talk for an hour, or I'd rather watch them live stream for like 3 hours, let's say. And it's like, dang, like I'm never gonna meet this person. And it doesn't mean I can't follow them and I can't watch their content. You have to draw a line. You have to make it clear, because I think there's something where the mind just doesn't register. The mind does not register that, like, hey, you don't know this person. And it doesn't mean they have to be Eminem or Kendrick Lamar, like super duper famous, but even just a content creator with like a couple thousand followers, like. And then, like, I think that's what it's to me. Like, I'll look to people who aren't as famous, who aren't like A-list celebrities. I'll be like, dang, well, like I could really meet this person, so it's not that weird, like but it's like, they don't know who I am. They could have like hundreds of followers. They still don't know who I am. And I think the problem is just idolizing people and putting your faith in the person, and then drama happens or whatever in the life and internet. It just messes you up. It's like, the more I'm talking about it now, I feel very weird, but I don't think it's like a weird in a bad way. Like, I just think it's just the realization that, yeah, this person does not know I exist. We're not friends. And it feels rude. It feels mean. Like, it feels like, well, not mean from me, but like if they were to say that, it would feel mean. But it's like, no, they're right. Just watch their content. They provide the content. It's like a very transactional thing. Yeah, that's basically my case for what I think is the root of modern mental distress, psychological distress with the definition we had. And now, I guess because I'm always like, I want to eliminate problems. Like, I don't want to, but like, you have to provide solutions to eliminate problems. Like, do you know what I'm saying? Anyway, let's get to it. When it comes to tech addiction, and this is something I've actually implemented and I found that's helped a lot. I started with deleting apps I don't use on a daily, at the most weekly basis. There are some apps like Venmo or Cash App that like I'll use once in a blue moon. I keep things like that, but what I've done, and this is kind of tailored to iPhones, apologize to anyone who doesn't have an iPhone, but I'm pretty sure there's an equivalent, so just keep that in mind. I deleted pretty much all the apps from my home screen. So to find an app, I have to like swipe over and search it, or just like it'll be a list in alphabetical order. And I feel, first of all, I just like how that looks because I'm able to see my wallpaper and it's just a clean look aesthetically. But I feel that it helps because I'm not so prone to just like, oh, like, you know, I don't have any games on my phone anymore. I don't have social media. I don't think everyone needs to take it that far, because I know that that's how people stay in touch. And some people, like, I think at a certain point I'll get back on social media, so I don't think it needs to be like that. I just personally have been off it, so I just am continuing to be off it. I turned off all my non-important notifications, so I pretty much only keep it for like the apps I use to connect with my friends and messages, so like family and loved ones can get in touch with me. On Apple, again, there's this setting where like you can remove like it being I'll show it, but there's different ways the notification can be seen. So like if you check your notification center, if you know what that is, you can check that. If you want the banner, the temporary, like you can really get into it, get into the notification settings, because it really will help. And I think what I should have prefaced this by saying, when it comes to like these tips I'm gonna provide, just tailor it towards yourself. I can't really give a one size fits all. This is just what I found has helped me make some progress and really feel like I'm somewhat less in distress, but overall just like cutting out these things that are making me more prone to it. So just keep that in mind. A big easy one, I think, if you don't want to like delete apps, or even though I think it'd be helpful, delete apps or turn off notifications, I think, is to turn on grayscale. Not sure if you could do it on the Android, maybe. So I turned on grayscale, which just means that on my phone it's basically black and white, monotone, and I feel like this helps because, well, first of all, I got this from I'm gonna link it down below just to be fair, this video of this guy who basically broke down everything you can do to just lower your screen time, because I felt like I was spending most of my tech addiction comes from my phone. I wouldn't say I'm on my computer all that much, other than editing and things like that. But yeah, grayscale really helped because, as he said in the video, it just is less entertaining, less stimulating to the brain, and you're just less likely to stay on your phone for long amounts of time. And if there's anything you really want to watch in color, you could do it on a computer, on a TV, where you're more likely to step away from it rather than your phone, which is on you, and you could just keep watching it till you literally go to sleep. Another thing I would say when it comes to tech addiction is just to be mindful of how much time and be conscious. And you could say this for all the things, just be mindful. If you're sitting at your computer for an hour, every hour, just take 5-10 minutes and just pace around, just get up, stretch. And if you need some sort of stimulation, just like listen to a little bit of a podcast you like or some songs you like. It doesn't necessarily have to be super unstimulating, but the point is to just get up and to take periodic breaks to the point where you're not having sat for 6 hours. This has helped me a lot. Like, I can't remember, probably sometime last year, where I would just be at the computer for hours and not get up. Like now it's like sometimes I don't even like to sit. I used to love to sit, bro. Like when I would look for jobs and stuff like that, I'd be like, I need something where I'm sitting. But now I want something when I'm standing, and when I move, I plan on getting a standing desk because I just feel like, wow, like just little changes like that. So when it comes to escapism and combating that, I think the way to go about it best is to really face what you're trying to escape in the first place. So what I would suggest, and I mentioned this in my last video if you want to check it out, not that I talked too much about it, but I just mentioned it, I think that you should stare at a blank wall for 1 hour. When I first heard this, I was gagged. But then the person, he was saying like people literally spend 4 to 6 hours on their phone and don't do anything other than just maybe stimulating their brain, but don't learn anything, don't create anything. And then when I thought about it, I was like, that's a good point. I've literally been on my phone for 6 hours and done nothing. So to just take an hour to just stare at a wall doesn't seem that bad when you think of it like that. So I would definitely recommend it. I've done it. Since then, I haven't really done the full hour, like for time management purposes, but I definitely want to do it again. It was so weird doing it, but definitely recommend, a boredom break, if you will. The next thing I would say is to, right after you do it, if you can, just write a list of everything that's important to you in real life. And you can also, I was gonna include this before, but you also can just like jot down any thoughts that came up in the hour, like what came up, like any repeating thoughts. Just observe your conscious mind. But I think it's important to really make a list of what's important to you now, whether it be school or a hobby or a passion, like stuff in your real life, and just taking baby steps to really accomplish it. And instead of listening to your favorite podcaster or binging like episodes of this show, because everything is so accessible now, just really to take the time. And I'm not saying your whole day has to be productivity, but just making it even, giving it maybe like, oh, like I want to write a book, so I'm gonna write a few pages today, and then afterwards I'm gonna watch an episode or two of my favorite show. Like making it in a way that like you're rewarding yourself with things you would already do, but you're also accomplishing new things. When it comes to escapism, the next thing I would say is to romanticize your life. This sounds a little silly because real life is real life. Like there's nothing really romantic about it. But I think that in order to progress and grow as a person, like you need to start feeling good about the life you have in whatever situation. Obviously, if it's like super distressful or abusive or violent, that's different. And I'm not saying to just romanticize that. But I guess I'm talking about someone like me who has struggled with mental distress, childhood stuff and things like that. I think it's important to, like, I'm big into making playlists. I'm gonna link my Spotify below. I'm big into making playlists and like thinking what songs are the soundtrack of my life, and what's it called? Like, I'm forgetting the name. I'm literally gonna put it on the screen because it's right in front of me. Whatever. I burn it. I'm gonna feel really freaking dumb when I'm done this video. But I burn, or maybe it's called Sage Girl. Basically, I'll burn it, and I don't know if it necessarily does anything. Like, maybe it is a placebo kind of thing, but it just makes me feel good, like I'm cleansing the space. I buy little candles to light up. Like, I have a little skincare routine now. I'm just doing things that, and like, again, tailor it to yourself. I'm not saying you have to do any of those things, but just what you value. And I think the way to combat escapism is getting to know yourself better, and it starts with just clearing your mind, facing things you're scared to uncover. Like, be a parent to yourself. Like, imagine yourself as your kid and what would you do. And that involves like taking care of yourself, but also being strict with yourself and accomplishing things like a parent would. So I just use that analogy. Okay, when it comes to combating parasocial relationships, I think the one thing, and like I did this way back in the day because social media was just not it for me, but I think it's don't follow any celebrities or influencers, and especially if they're not providing any value to your life. If you're basically following someone for aesthetics or entertainment, like I think on my Instagram account I follow this climate scientist, and he talks about the leading causes of climate change and everything, and I'm not really gonna follow him, but it's because he's providing value to something I care about, which is climate change. So when it comes to things like that, or like an author of a book you like and they're like, I think that's okay. But if it's like someone purely aesthetics or just like entertainment, but it's not really anything value, I really don't think you need to follow them on social media. And I'm talking like Instagram and Twitter. Like, if they're a content, this is tricky, because if it's like they're a YouTuber, you can still watch their YouTube videos, but to follow them on Instagram and do the extra mile of connecting yourselves to them when you don't know them, like, I would just recommend anyone you follow on Instagram is someone you know in real life. And that doesn't mean like you can't see their Instagram page every once in a while, but I just don't think like following and having notifications on, that part, turn off any, like, even on YouTube, any notifications, Twitch, any notifications. The content will always be there. And I know people are big on being the first one and the first thing, but it's like, put yourself first, you know? Like, you can be the first one to watch this video and that's cool and everything, but it's like the person making it, like, especially if they have millions or thousands of followers, they're not really going to care. I feel very mean right now, but I feel like it's just like we need to just be a little more self-centered when it comes to parasocial relationships and strengthening actual relationships. That part. I would say just like, what I'm trying to say is like, just keep it to like a 1 to 2 person thing. Like, if you're like, oh, I love this person and they literally influence me so much, like, I would say that to me is like Kendrick Lamar. I'm probably gonna keep following Kendrick Lamar. I would say just 1 or 2 people at the max that you're like, okay, they're celebrities, I put them on this pedestal, I'm acknowledging it, but I'm just keeping it to a very low minimum. I think a last thing of combating parasocial relationships is to reach out to a friend you actually know. It can be an online friend too, but someone you actually communicate with, and just respond to loved ones and their messages. I gotta hurry this the hell up because my camera's gonna die. So freaking annoying. Yeah, I would say respond to your loved ones. I'd be leaving them on red for, not red, but leaving them unresponded for like a week. A week's my max. But it's like, reach out to real people in your life and strengthen these relationships. And if you don't have any, just try to find real people in real life. That's all I have for this week. I gotta wrap this shit up. Yeah, this video is a little bit of a mess. I'm a little frantic, but I hope you got something out of it. Thank you so much for watching, and have a blessed rest of your day. Peace and love. Take care.